Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this Tuesday evening, July 6th. Hopefully everybody's had a safe and enjoyable 4th of July weekend. Tonight's meeting, to begin with, we'll have an invocation by Senior Pastor Peaches Smith of Haven United Methodist Church, and I'll lead the pledge. Please rise.
Good Tuesday afternoon. Blessings to all. Let us bow our heads, please. Most gracious and heavenly Father, God, we thank you for yet another day that you have created for each of us in mind. God, we thank you for the new mercies and the new opportunities that you have presented to us that we may serve you in a greater way. God, you have also given us an invitation to come boldly to your throne. So tonight we have accepted that invitation and we come boldly to your throne and we present to you each person that is here on this evening. God, as we come together with open hearts and open minds, let us all come together with an understanding of making a difference in the lives of those who are around us and in our lives. God, right now we ask that you bless each person that is here. God, give us grace, give us mercy, give us love and understanding, that we may continue to make the choices that will help Hot Springs to be the light, the city that's on the hill, that will make a difference in all lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday. Here. Director Elaine Jones.
Here.
Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith.
Here.
Director Carol Weatherford.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia.
Here.
Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda or items to be moved from consent agenda to new business? Any additions, deletions, or items to be moved? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved, Mayor.
You got Director Trustee, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor of the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of June 15th, 2021. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I so moved, Mayor.
Director Jones, seconded by Director Dobbs-Smith. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are adopted. Recognition of guests. Any board member have guests they'd like to recognize this evening? You're all of our guests, and I understand we have a number of people in the lobby area, so thank you for participating in your local government. Board of Directors, City Manager's report. Mr. Bill Burrow.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things I want to highlight. I had several things, but with the meeting and there's many people here tonight to speak on a couple items, I'll try to be brief. Do want to talk about the city sales tax, and the April sales tax came in at 35.5% greater than the same period in 2020. Was well above what we had in 2019 as well. And year to date, we are up 18.16%. The amount of people that were here over the holiday weekend was really phenomenal, and I think we may have set a record down at the Visitor Center in Hill Wheatley Plaza. The Saturday, July 3rd, we had 1,053 people stop in that Visitor Center. Maintained that through the 4th, had about 716 people on that day. The other 300 or 400, I think, were out on Lake Campbellton from the looks of the lake. But we're blessed to have that kind of tourism here in the city of Hot Springs. looking back at some of our sales tax numbers, actually, our Deputy City Manager Spicer was looking back at some of the prior years. And June 22nd of 2011, we were barely reaching $500,000 a month in our sales tax, and we've tripled that in the last 10 years. So hopefully those good fortunes will remain with us, and we're able to use those additional monies for the benefit of our residents and visitors alike. We have the moratorium on evictions coming up on July 31st. Very concerned about that, as those protections are going to go away. We do have a grant that is out there, and so just want to remind our Hot Springs residents that if they've experienced some kind of financial hardship due to COVID or as a result of COVID-19, whether that's loss of a job, reduced hours, whatever it may be, and they fall within the criteria of this assistance, we do have quite a bit of money out there for rental assistance as well as utility assistance. We've worked with our partners on this particular project is Ouachita Behavioral Health and Wellness, and it's a Community Development Block Grant CARES Act fund for emergency rent and utility subsistence program. You can reach them at 501-762-9038. 501-762-9038. This information will be on the city's website as well. If you're outside of the city limits or in Garland County resident, there's additional help there as well, and it's with the Garland County Community Service Office at 600 West Grand. Again, Garland County Community Service Office, 600 West Grand. We're very concerned what may happen after July 31st with that eviction protection going away. COVID is on the rise over the past couple of weeks. We did really well in getting the numbers down, and now we're seeing that kind of transition back the other way. We had 146 active cases in Garland County this morning. That's up from, in the 60s just a week and a half ago. So we're concerned about that. I was speaking with Dr. Shelby, and Dr. Ross had also made a statement when we were discussing this rise in COVID, and he shared with us that they've only had one patient at the hospital that required hospitalizations that had not been vaccinated. So, only one patient that was fully vaccinated. All of his other patients have been non-immunized. When the governor spoke to the Rotary group this past week, he stated that out of all the hospitalizations in Arkansas, 98% were non-immunized. They had not had the vaccine. So I implore anyone here tonight that hasn't had the vaccine or listening at home, please take the vaccine. It's the only way we're going to beat this. I want to thank our police department for their activities on June the 15th with Special Olympics. They were joined by some of our Special Olympic athletes, and they actually jogged with the law enforcement on the torch run for Special Olympics. I think it was 9.6 miles that day. So, Chief, I commend you and our officers for getting out there and making that run. Also on June 19th, we had Juneteenth celebration down at the Farmers Market, and our police department cooked some wonderful hot dogs and some of the other things that were there to eat, and we appreciate them being there for that. I think it was the chief and Chief Harverton both, maybe a couple of the captains were there cooking the hot dogs, and then I know you also had a booth there, so we appreciate that. It's always good to see our police department getting out and being with the community, so I appreciate what you're doing there. There's several other things, Mayor, but in the essence of time, I'll send this to you in an update.
No, sales tax revenues you report, were those for the month of April?
Those were for the month of April. And
I think you're going to find that May is going to be stronger yet. I was looking at some numbers and had to go back and look at the calendar. There were only 4 weekends in the month of April. The month of May had 5 full weekends, including in the Memorial Day, well, Monday. So I think you're going to find that May's sales tax revenues will be significant.
Well, as you know, the A&P, they receive their information a little bit sooner than we do. We're about a 60-day lag in when we get our results. But in speaking with Mr. Harrison, they had a strong return in May as well. So we look for that maybe over the next couple of months.
Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Board of Directors announcements regarding upcoming events. Directors have up. Director Holliday.
Thank you. I mentioned this at the last meeting, but a reminder on July 8th, in just a couple of days, Anything is Popsicle, which is a fundraiser for the splash pad at Watkins Park on Park Avenue. It's from 3 to 6 p.m. It's a free event. There'll be free popsicles and free hot dogs and kids' activities. So we hope people come up to Park Avenue, and specifically if you've not been to Watkins Park, it's a great park. So join us up there here in a couple of days from 3 to 6.
Very good. Thank you. Any other announcements? Director
Yes.
Trustee.
On July 22nd at Adult and Teen Challenge of Arkansas, we are honoring Reverend Tim Colbert. Tim has served in this capacity as Executive Director of what was Teen Challenge of Arkansas, what is now Adult and Teen Challenge of Arkansas, for almost 40 years. It would be 40 years in October. His last official day with the ministry was June 30th. We have hired a new executive director. It's been my privilege to serve on that board for over 30 years. And we would invite you to come out, and if you've had any involvement with Teen Challenge, or if you know Tim or Sally Colbreth, we would invite you to come out and say hello to Tim. It's at the Teen Challenge, Adult and Teen Challenge Center at the dining hall. It's drop-in. It's from 5 to 7 on July the 22nd. So,
Very good. Well, thank you. Yes, he'll be missed, and I know the organization will continue to thrive. Any other
I've got one
announcements?
there,
Yes,
believe it or not,
Director
it's a
Joe.
real one. The Giving Team, Miss Ida's House of Care and Love, Essential Pathways, and District 2, Elaine Jones, will sponsor a free home-cooked Sunday dinner, July 11th, from 12 noon to 2 p.m. in the parking lot next to Habitat Restore, where Food for Thought is held every Saturday. The dinner is being held to encourage citizens, underserved, and those in need of a meal in District 2 to support the Minority Health Mobile Care Bus, which will be in Hot Springs on Saturday, July 24th, from 10 till 2 at Food for Thought. That's the name of the team that does this work on every fourth Saturday. We are hoping all in need of medical screening will take advantage of the services offered by this mobile health clinic. And this is written by Janice Davis, the Giving Team. You know, I forgot it last time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, it's still in front of us, right?
Yes.
It didn't happen already.
No, oh, no.
No. That's good. Any other director with an announcement of upcoming event? I received some communication today from the Arkansas Foundation for Medical Care. They're working with the governor and trying to get us to a 50% COVID vaccination rate. And so this is kind of parlaying off of what the city manager, Bill Burrow, was talking about. There are two events that are just being announced, and Saturday, July 10th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Mid-America Science Museum, where the Pfizer 2-dose series will be administered. Certainly you won't get 2 doses on the first day, but you'll get the one, and then I guess about 3 weeks later you'll get a second dose. So Mid-America Science Museum on Saturday, July 10th, 2021. Mid-America Science Museum. And then on July 17th, right over across the street here at Bank KZ Arena, July 17th, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. The vaccines will be given, and that will be the Johnson & Johnson one-dose vaccine. So one and done across the street on July 17th. So again, if you haven't received the vaccine, we do encourage our citizens to do so. I know personally people who have not gotten a vaccine, and in the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've had a number of individuals come down with COVID-19. And then, today, there's no supplemental reimbursement for lost wages for that, so you're without. And I understand all the pros and cons, but think of those people who are also around you and you interact with. So give serious consideration to getting a vaccine. July 10th from 10 to 4 p.m. Mid-America Science Museum. July 17th, Bank OKZ Arena, 8 to 3. I was in Walgreens on Albert Pike at Airport Road, and I was picking up some stuff, and their little intercom system indicated, free COVID vaccines, no wait, just walk up, no appointment necessary. So, it's readily available. You just have to walk in and ask. Thank you. This completes our announcements of upcoming events. At this time, we'll consider the consent agenda. These items are of a routine nature that do not merit individual discussion. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We got Director Trustee, seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is adopted. At this time, we'll consider under old business Resolution R2191. I ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-21-91, a resolution approving a conditional use permit for Covenant Recovery, Inc. to expand an existing residential group living facility located at 276 Linden Street. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Holliday, seconded by Director Jones.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I will recuse myself from this issue, and I apologize. Before I realized it, I was in conversations with people at different times that are on both sides of this issue. I don't want to give the appearance of not being objective, so I will recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Our staff report will be provided by Director of Planning and Development, Ms. Kathy Selman. Welcome.
Thank you. On March 11th, 2021, Hot Springs Planning Commission unanimously approved with conditions a conditional use request by applicant Covenant Recovery to increase the maximum number of residents at an existing residential group living facility, Zone C3, Office Neighborhood Commercial, at 276 Linden Street. Mark Toth appealed this action within 30 days as prescribed by Hot Springs Code. Hot Springs Board of Directors considered this appeal on May 4th, 2021 at their regularly scheduled meeting and overturned the Planning Commission's approval of a conditional use permit for Covenant Recovery on a 3-3 vote. On June 15th, 2021, the Board of Directors voted 4-2 to reconsider the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the conditional use permit. Hot Springs Code Section 16273 states, "The Planning Commission may impose conditions and restrictions upon the premises benefited by a conditional use permit as may be necessary to reduce or minimize the injurious effects of the conditional use, ensure compatibility with the surrounding property, and carry out the general intent of this ordinance." The board, in their reconsideration, likewise has the ability to approve, deny, or amend. For an example, an amendment could include the reduction in the approved number of beds. Hot Springs Code Section 16212C, appeals to the Board of Directors, states that the appeal shall be de novo. However, they shall first be considered on the record of the public hearing and Planning Commission meeting at which the original case was heard and the original decision made. Based on this review, the Board of Directors may affirm Planning Commission's decision, reverse it, or send the case back to Planning Commission for further study and recertification, or if new information is placed before the board that in the opinion of the board would affect Planning Commission's decision, the board may refer the case back to Planning Commission for further study, including the new information and recertification. The board is also able to amend the resolution as it is presented to you tonight. I have gone through this in detail with you before, and I know that you are familiar with the circumstances of this, so I will end it there. I am available to answer any questions, should you think that that would be helpful. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Selman at this time? So what is before us tonight is a 48-bed facility?
Yes, what is before you tonight is exactly the same as the application that came to Planning Commission and that was appealed to you in May. And that would be a 48-bed facility, group living facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a number of individuals who have signed up to speak on this item this evening. I would ask that you each respect the 3-minute time limit, and I would ask those who are in audience to refrain from any comments or cheering or jeering or booing or hissing, during the presenter's time frame. In that way, we can all listen to the commentary and aid us in rendering a decision. At this time, we'll begin with Ms. Bernstein Kilgore. Please come forward and restate your name, your address, and what district you live in. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernstein Kilgore. I live at 323 Walnut Street, Hot Springs, and I'm in District 1. My position is against the Covenant Ministry home in our neighborhood. As I stated before, that's right in my backyard, and it is right adjacent to the parks where children play, small children, older children, and adults. And it's not a good dynamic for a situation for people who are in recovery to be in a neighborhood with so few constraints. I'm not against people getting help. We all need some type of help. My position is that it just should not be in a residential neighborhood. The thing that I like to consider for the board is that if you can consider this in our neighborhood, would you also consider placing one in each one of your neighborhoods? I think this is something to be considered on a broader scale, like the Garland County Detention Center when it was built. I understand the city went together with the county because they didn't have anywhere to house their prisoners. They needed a larger space, so they partnered together for them to have that facility out at the edge of town. I would like to see the city and county partner together with Mr. Kinsey or McKenzie, whatever his name is, and help him get a facility out there on the grounds of the Garland County Detention Center. That place is very, very spacious, and they will still have their own privacy, and they would be able to be monitored, and hopefully they would be able to have benefits for their employees that would be covered by the state as well as the city. And we could set a precedent in Arkansas and the world that we are the first to consider housing people who need help. This is not something that's a one-time thing that's going to go away. Every 18 months or so, you see in the paper that they're overcrowded at the jail, and it's mostly for minor occurrences, drug infractions, stuff like that. With having a property out there designed as a halfway house would help to inhibit that. And I would like to see that done. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Kilgore? Thank you. Ms. Glenda Dunn? Ms. Glenda Dunn?
She's in the hall, Mayor, I believe.
Okay. We'll give her a minute to come forward. Ms. Dunn, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Glenda Dunn. I live on Buena Vista Road, District 5. I oppose this project. The main reason that I would oppose this project is the location of it. As the lady spoke earlier, we're definitely in need of this type of program. It's just the location. I have concern with the proximity to Linden Park. I also walk Whittington most weekends. So, usually I may be by myself, and I wouldn't feel as comfortable knowing that that is there. There's also a CSO Head Start that is just, within a block of the facility. So in light of that and the kids from ASMSA using this location, I just don't feel that this location is a good and safe location for the residential neighborhood. I just feel that it should be at a different location. I know out of their Pine Bluff location, I know they talk about that there's, not felons, it's drug-related mainly, marijuana, that type of stuff. But I do know, he talked about that they'd never had any escapes or anything of that issue, but it wasn't just very shortly after our board meeting in May, on the 27th, is when it was on Channel 7, their Pine Bluff location had an escapee. Mr. Lorenco Lee, 44, and it stated it was from one of their facilities. So, you can't make it fail-safe. If they want out, they can get out. Yes, I know they will go back to jail, but it's like, what do they do in the meantime? So, again, I just feel it's not the best location for it. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Dunn? Ms. Dunn, has been operating as a similar style. Well, it's been operating for some time with 8. Are you opposed to the 8 there?
Well, I'm not opposed necessarily to the 8. That's a small amount and easily managed. I am opposed to 48. It's just that's a larger group, a larger amount of people to be trying to control. I don't prefer the 8 there. I still don't think it's the best location, but I know the city has the policy about 8 non-family members that can cohabitate together. So there's not really anything that, that I know of that we could do about that. But I definitely am opposed to 48.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy McKenzie. 3 minutes, and restate your name, address, and district.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Jeremy McKenzie, 206. Jeremy McKenzie, 206 Little John Trail, Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm not sure what district that is. Thank you, first off, for reconsidering our agenda item tonight. I understand it's a controversial topic. There's people on both sides of the equation, and both people have valid points. So for you guys to take time and put it back on the docket to reconsider that, regardless of the outcome of tonight's meeting, certainly I thank you and I appreciate that on your behalf to give it a fair look. And regardless of the vote tonight, the outcome will be what it is. We'll respect that outcome, and we will make a plan moving forward to continue to provide service in whatever fashion we can as a community partner and a member of this community with the City of Hot Springs. Today's a special day for me. Today's my 8th wedding anniversary. My wife's in attendance today, and our 7-year-old son sitting right here on the second row. I have to acknowledge that. I made it 8 years, and I hope to make it 8 more. And let me tell you that our family loves Hot Springs. We live in Whitehall full-time, but the address that I gave the board just a second ago is our house here in Hot Springs. We've owned it for 5 years. We come here every weekend. We spend our tax dollars in Hot Springs. We buy gas in Hot Springs. We go out to eat in Hot Springs. And upon the conclusion of this facility being in full operation, we will move our family completely to Hot Springs, Arkansas, because we love it here. When Director Holliday talked about the fundraiser just a minute ago down on Park Avenue, and she mentioned hot dogs and popsicles, my son perked all the way up. But enough about that. Covenant Recovery has been in existence for 10 years. Okay, we operate 4 facilities in the state of Arkansas. Okay, 2 in Pine Bluff, 1 in Malvern, 1 in Hot Springs. The one in Hot Springs is 276 Linden Street. We have 8 people there. Okay? The lady that mentioned the escape a minute ago, she told the absolute truth. The news misprinted it. It happened at Malvern. It happened in our reentry center. One of the main points I'd like to drive home to the community tonight and to this board is the difference between a rehabilitation facility and a reentry facility. Our agency, we do both. And at our reentry facilities, we 100% house inmates on an early release program under the supervision of Arkansas Community Corrections. That is absolutely not what we're going to do at 276 Linden Street. And if you approve our agenda tonight, you can make that a firm stipulation that we never house inmates there, released on an early release plan from Department of Corrections to that facility. We will be licensed by DHS, the Office of Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention. We have filed for our license for our facility here at Linden Street. We have not filed for a license through ACC in any form or fashion. And we currently do not house parolees or early release offenders there at the Linden Street property. We're a community agency. We have community partnerships in this community that we've worked hard for years to establish. National Park, our residents go to school there. Henderson, the list goes on and on. I see I'm out of time. I want to respect the time constraints of tonight. I would prefer to spend any additional time we have to maybe answer a question that someone has. I think you'll be impressed with our presentation tonight. People will compliment what we're going to do and how we're going to be a community agency.
Any questions of Mr. McKenzie? Any questions?
Mayor, I actually do have one, if you don't mind. So you will not have any parolees at that location?
We currently don't have any parolees at that location now, and under the DBHS license, that's a residential treatment license. We would have to have a license through ACC in order to house parolees there. It's not something that we plan to do. We have planned to house felons there. That's a topic that keeps going around, and I want to address that straightforward. But there's a difference in a felon and a parolee. There's also a difference in somebody that's a felon. You're talking to a felon tonight, whether you know it or not, and there's a difference in somebody who's a felon and somebody who's a dangerous individual. We will not house dangerous individuals there. We will not house sexual offenders there. And if this is the stipulation of the board that we can't house parolees, we won't. We won't. What we want to do is be a community partner. We want to provide whatever service the City of Hot Springs will allow us to provide. I'd like to ask the board if you would consider amending our application to a lower number that would help us engage with the community, whether it be 48, we could do 28. We could do a number that is acceptable to the community of Hot Springs, acceptable to the neighbors. I'd like to personally invite the members of this board to come tour our facility. I'd like to personally invite the community to come and tour our facility at any time. I'd also like to build a privacy fence between our facility and the Linden Street Park. I'd like to build a 6 or 8 foot privacy fence complete with brick columns that match the bathroom, the brick on the bathroom that's right there in the Linden Park district. I'll do it all at our own cost, no cost to the city, no cost to the community. A full separation, very nice fence that would just provide separation. I know that was one concern. If there's other concerns, we're happy to address them. I've had a hard time engaging the community to help address some of their concerns.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. McKenzie?
I have a question.
Yes, Director Dom Smith.
So just to be clear, they're not parolees, but they are, if they weren't at your facility, they probably would be locked up, or they would be definitely?
Our facility is not a lockdown facility, no ma'am, so nobody at our facility would be locked up. They could be referred there by the court.
Okay.
On some occasions, some people are referred there by the court, yes ma'am.
And I do want to commend you. I mean, it's a good thing that you went from being a felon to being able to have 2 houses and one of them on the lake here in Hot Springs. That's awesome.
Sure, thank you. I've worked hard. And we want to continue to work hard to serve this community and the other people that need help. Thank you.
Any other questions or?
I got one for the city attorney. Is there any way we can change those numbers?
Yes, ma'am. As Ms. Silman indicated, you are permitted to consider an amendment to the application that you're considering tonight. One thing, I just want to be clear, if I may. So the facility that you intend to run there does not require a license from the Arkansas Department of Corrections.
It does not require one, no, sir. I have filed for a license with DHS, and I have a lady who's worked for DHS for many, many years licensing treatment centers, who's going to speak behind me, who could answer better questions as far as the accountability that we're held to from a state standard.
I just want you to understand the board might have an issue if it's considered a correctional facility.
Absolutely not. And I would encourage you to amend the number.
You can make an amendment if you want to change the number.
Thank
Okay,
you again.
Any further questions of Mr. McKenzie?
No, Mayor, but I would like to make an amendment that we
Well,
go
can we
to.
hold on that? Can we
Oh,
do
he
that at
told
the
me to
end? Because
do
I
it.
got 30 people here that have.
Oh, I thought he told me to do it. You meant I could do it when the time comes. Okay,
Okay.
Mayor.
We
Thank
just
you.
want an opportunity to prove ourselves. Thank you very much.
Ms. Diane Corrigan, Ms. Corrigan, please come forward and restate your name and address and district, please.
My name is Diane Corrigan. I live at 201 Walnut Street. When we moved to Hot Springs in 2006, 15 years ago, I wanted to live close to the downtown area, and when I found a house that was less than a half a block away from Whittington Park, I was completely sold. This is the most beautiful place in all of Hot Springs. We love the peace, beauty, and tranquility that such a historic setting offers. We have large dogs, and walking is a must. And where better place than to walk than Whittington Park? I've made many friends here just walking around this beautiful place. It is in the national park, and it is safe. Whittington Park needs to remain what it was designed to be, a beautiful place for all to enjoy. Residents, tourists, young and old, and safe for everyone. It is my firm belief that this home would better serve the public if it were located in a more remote location. As the sign says, Hot Springs National Park. Why would you want to ruin that? Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Corrigan? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mark Toth? Mr. Mark Toth?
You may be outside.
Yeah. We'll give him a minute. Mr. Toth, please come forward, restate your name and your address and district, please. Mr. Spicer, can you help pass those out?
One packet for each board member. Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
My name is Mark Toth. I live at 110 Montclair Lane in the Whittington Valley. Tonight, you have 5 possible actions. You may think you only have 2, but you actually have 5. You can approve the permit, either with modifications or as is. You can deny the permit. You can send the matter back to planning. You can negotiate to buy the site and add it to the city park. Or you can impose a 30-day moratorium on all planning decisions, just like you have in place for the short-term rentals, and complete the update of the zoning code to match the 2040 plan. One of those solutions, the first one, I think, and I think you'll see tonight, will generate a lot of anger and hostility and negative feelings in the community. I'm going to talk first about option 3 at some length. The first page of that handout is a part of the city code, and I've highlighted a section. The assessment of the conditional uses for this property did not take into consideration the 2040 plan or the neighborhood plans, even though the code requires that consideration. Ms. Selman was asked by the planning commissioner, should we consider the 2013 amendment to the Park Whittington plan? She told him it wasn't applicable. Okay? And that's unfair. The code specifically says one of the things that the planning commission should do is to carry out the general intent of the comprehensive plan, appropriate neighborhood plans, and this code. I've highlighted the section on the first page. I'm going to move quickly through this. On pages 4 of the handout, Ms. Selman, in an earlier presentation to this board, I think back in 2012, made that exact argument, that yes, neighborhood plans should be considered when conditional uses are undertaken. By ignoring the 2013 amendment to the Park Whittington plan, the interests of the neighborhood were largely ignored. Since the amendment was never considered, proposed, or assessed, there are potential conditions that were never even considered. One is a provision consistent with 1632-307E of the Arkansas Code, which your city attorney actually got on another conditional use permit, which would have prohibited people convicted of illegal distribution or manufacturing of controlled substances from going into that facility. I'm running out of time, but in terms of screening, in terms of spillover parking, the neighborhood's concerns did not have an opportunity to be addressed because the process from the very beginning denied the applicability of the Park Whittington plan, and that was a fatal error.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Toth? The current operation of the Coventry program and the Quapaw House and Barb's Place, those are all somewhat comparable programming. As it exists today, are you opposed to that style of program in its size and scope in that location?
The neighborhood is comfortable with 8 because in terms of traffic and noise, the program that they're talking about, whether it's 28, 48, 58, requires the individuals to get jobs within 90 days. That's 48 people coming up and down that road
coming and going to work. Would you want to live next to a building with 48? You require, for example, and I'll end with this example, the Micro Motel over on Higdon. They're required to put up a privacy fence. I know Mr. McKenzie says he's doing that, but if you don't put these requirements in writing, they're not enforceable. And that's why I urge you to send it back to planning so the community can voice their concerns, so that the committee can actually consider the 2013 amendment as the code requires. Remember, I'm not asking for anything special. It's actually written in your code they're supposed to consider these issues. Now, they may come back with the exact same recommendations, but a process where the neighborhood's interests were explicitly told, where the Planning Commission was explicitly told you do not have to consider these. And Director Holliday, you were a planning commissioner. You know that it's important that the code be followed. You have to be fair. And to be fair, you actually have to follow the code. You don't just ignore part of it. And that's what's happened in this case.
Very good. Any further questions of Mr. Toth? Thank you. Mr. Mark Linder, Mr. Linder. He may be outside as well. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Mark Linder, 308 Maple Terrace, and that's District 1. There's actually a few questions for you, Mr. Trustee.
Well, we're not addressing questions. We're hearing testimony from those who have signed up to speak. So
Well, I'm here to speak, and this is why this is what we're doing here.
what we're doing here is hearing you tell us what your thoughts are, pro or
My
con.
thoughts are that somebody that may have financial interest in this going up maybe should recuse themselves from this process. So,
Well, please continue, but we're not directing questions to directors.
okay. Anybody who has stock holdings in Simmons Bank, who is the mortgage holder for this process, that will probably not do well if they can't get the 28 or 48 people that they need in there. They are financially tied to this thing. So they might vote in one way or another, depending on their personal financial gain in this case. So I have records that Mr. Trustee here does have stock in the mortgage holder of the property in question.
Okay, continue.
All right, so might want to consider recusing yourself if you do hold financial stock in the company that may lose the money on this if they can't reach the number of people that they need. So that's where I'm at with that. Do we need to move on to other stuff, or?
Continue.
Okay.
You got your 1 minute and 20 seconds.
All right, so does anybody here know for sure whether it's going to be people are not allowed out, or they are allowed out, or some are not allowed out, or some have to get jobs after 90 days, anything like that? Because I've heard 2 different stories 3 different times from the people here, from the people involved, and from the transcripts that I've the recordings that I've watched. Does anybody actually know which one it's going to be here when you're voting on it? No?
Like I say, continue.
No? All right, well, if you don't know what kind of facility is absolutely going to be put there, maybe you shouldn't be voting on it. Maybe it shouldn't be put there until you find out what is actually going to be put in that spot. And that's where I'm at with this. So, obviously, I'm against this, but you guys have a responsibility to know what you're putting in my neighborhood, and you have a responsibility to know if somebody may have some financial ties to this going through. So, there we have it. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. I didn't think so.
Ms. Latrice Atkins. Ms. Latrice Atkins. Ms. Atkins, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Latrice Atkins, and my address is 10516 Diamond Drive in Little Rock, Arkansas. My name is Latrice Atkins. My address is 10516 Diamond Drive, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Thank you.
Hello. I already said my name.
Well, you might want to just pull your mic down just a hair. Thank you.
For the last 8 years, I was the substance abuse coordinator for DHS, Division of Behavioral Health Services and Division of Provider Services and Quality Assurance. I went across the state of Arkansas and ensured services for mental health and substance abuse facilities, all that were licensed by the state. I have been assisting Covenant Recovery with obtaining a treatment license with DHS, which will hold them accountable to a higher level of standards and monitoring protocols throughout the state. They will be accountable for making sure that they are in compliance with all state, city, local regulations. This will consist of annual licensure reviews, announced and unannounced visits, treatment data reported to the alcohol, drug, and treatment programs throughout the state, confidentiality, policies and procedures to ensure client safety, emergency protocols, and critical care incidents. The weekly drug testing and alcohol testing will also be required, and counseling from certified and licensed individuals. Agreements must be in place with licensed mental health agencies and other agencies that they do not provide the services for. They must comply with all the physical requirements, and clients must be monitored at all times. They will not be able to loiter outside of the buildings. They will have to be with staff at all times. They will be required to participate in at least 30 hours or more of counseling, individual group sessions, family sessions, and life skills trainings. Currently, I work for the Criminal Justice Institute. I am the community liaison for Garland, Pulaski, Pike, Hot Spring, and Miller, and several other counties as well. We are working closely with the state drug director to abate the prescription drug opioid overdose crisis. Currently, Arkansas is number 2 in the nation for overprescribing of opioids, which are very addictive. Hot Springs is one of the high-risk areas in Arkansas right now that we are addressing. There were over 300 drug-related arrests alone. The cost to provide treatment services is much cheaper than incarceration. Quapaw House was one of the largest treatment facilities in this area, and since their closing, clients have been having a difficult time to find treatment services. They're not able to get the counseling that they need in this area. With the services that Covenant Recovery offers, it will be greatly beneficial to this area and will help individuals seek adequate treatment services. The staff will carry naloxone because they have been through the training currently already, and they have been certified in crisis prevention, CPR, and first aid. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Atkins at this time?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Just approximately how much per, does a facility receive per person there to help care for the people who are at the facility?
Covenant Recovery will not receive state funds because they're not a funded agency. They will receive funds through other sources.
So this is a nonprofit?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins, there were some questions
Well-
regarding programming, and you said that you were at DHS, that you had responsibility for licensure. You indicated that the programming is a 30-hour per week. What are the guidelines for off-campus activities or work-related activities?
It's not required with the treatment staff or the treatment clients. They will not be able to leave off campus.
Thank you.
They're inpatient or they're discharged. Not for the treatment clients with the substance abuse license, no.
Okay, thank you. Any further Director Weatherford?
She says they can't leave the facility?
Not the individuals who are receiving treatment services through the Department of Human Services. Not the residential clients, no.
For any reason, at any time?
I haven't seen a protocol that they've been able
The
to.
only reason I'm asking
Huh?
is he stood up here the last time and said they go to church on Sunday and somebody picks them up, takes them out of the facility.
That would be his transitional living clients. But once he receives the treatment license with the state, they will not be able to do that. But while they're transitional living, that's not under DHS licensure standards. That's under, I think, Department of Corrections. But once they obtain the treatment license, which they have applied for, they've placed the application, it's just the state has a protocol that they have to follow before they send someone out to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Ms. Atkins, are you going to?
No, please.
No, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins.
Thank you.
Ms. Barbara Mueller, please. Ms. Barbara Mueller.
Barbara Mueller, 217 Muscadine, 1st District. I have 2 points. According to the zoning code, correctional facilities are not allowed in commercial or residential areas. I've been searching for legal authority to support the position that the proposed facility on Linden Street is a halfway house because people will be living there under court order, and that halfway houses are a correctional facility. I found such an authority. I've passed it around. It's our city attorney, Brian Albright. I'm passing out Mr. Albright's memo dated May 9th, 2012. Mr. Albright wrote his memo in response to an inquiry from the Arkansas Fair Housing Commission. If you turn to page 5, you can note the passages highlighted in blue. As Mr. Albright writes, it is not the city's practice to ask what type of people will occupy a group dwelling. It is the city's practice to inquire if residents are there at the direction of a judge resulting from a criminal action, as that would trigger the Hot Springs Code halfway house standard. Further down the page, Mr. Albright writes, which I've also highlighted in blue, a halfway house is not eligible to be located in a C2 zone. After all, halfway house, a correctional facility, is allowed as a conditional use only in M2 heavy manufacturing district. If you need to review the definition for halfway house, you can find it on page 4 of Mr. Albright's answer. The residents at the proposed facility on Linden Street would be there under a court order. As Mr. Albright argued in his memo, this makes the facility a halfway house and by extension a correctional facility. And under city code, correctional facilities are not allowed in commercial or residential zones. I have my second point, which involves this memo that's on the back of it's clipped to the back of the paper I passed out. According to the zoning code, the proposed facility may start out as only a Department of Behavioral Health Services residential group living facility, but it gives Mr. Kenzie the express right to convert it to an Arkansas Community Corrections facility without any further permission from planning or the city board. I've provided documentation on his interest in doing so with his June 2019 memo from ACC Housing Manager Jared Self, which is paperclipped to the back of your handout, where Mr. McKenzie asks about operating under an ACC license in Hot Springs. Your approval thus gives the go-ahead for breaching the existing code regulations on halfway house location. And that will set a precedent for the location of Arkansas correctional facilities within all our city districts. I say you must deny this application on this basis. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Ms. Mueller? Questions of Ms. Mueller? Thank you. Mr. Roger Mason. Mr. Mason, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Hi, my name is Dr. Roger Mason. I live at 431 North Lakeshore Drive, Lake Village, Arkansas. And I want to get it out of the way at the top of the meeting. I am a damn Yankee. But I've been living with my wife in Arkansas for the last 17 years, and we love the state, we love the people here, and we love contributing to the state of Arkansas. Who in this room hasn't been affected by addiction, either personally or a family member or an acquaintance? It's so prevalent. If we had the people in this room selected off the streets of Hot Springs this evening, 1 in 10 of us would be dealing with an addiction. It's a shocking statistic. Every day in the United States, people are dying at the rate of a 737 plane crash every day. So it's a very definite, real problem that all communities in our state are dealing with. I'd like to spend a short time talking about some misconceptions associated with people who have an addiction. The first is that the addicts choose this lifestyle to lead an irresponsible lifestyle, seeking a continuous high, lacking the willpower to stop their addiction. And the second misconception is that it's basically inevitably hopeless to deal with these people because of the relapse rate. Most addicts are not criminal-minded individuals who lack willpower or moral fiber. They are ordinary people who have oftentimes fallen into their addiction because of misuse of pain medications. Once they're locked in the addiction, they're helpless to break that chain by themselves. These are the people we will be treating at our facility in Hot Springs. I've heard a lot about treatment of people who have been incarcerated or avoiding prison time and so forth. My understanding is that this is a residential facility. It's not a transitional where people will be going out to get jobs, to get re-established in the community. It's strictly residential, which means they'll be there for 30 days receiving medical treatment and behavioral counseling. Some believe that addicts, because the statistics show that treatment of addicts is helpless because of a 20 or 30% success rate that they have with the 12-step programs and faith-based programs. We have a program we're going to institute at this facility, which is relatively new, using medical-assisted treatment. And with that, we've achieved close to a 90% success rate in the locations where we're working in the Delta. So this is the program that we intend to implement here, and I hope we have an opportunity to work in this community. We'd love to contribute to bettering your health in this community.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mason. What is your affiliation with Covenant?
We're consultants with Covenant at this point. We would be organizing and running the medical aspects of the recovery of the facility, setting up a medical assisted treatment for the clients and organizing the behavioral health services, the counseling for these people.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions from other board members?
I've
to
got a
Dr.
question.
Mason?
I'm really kind of confused. The last time we were told, I mean, I still have my notes here, that the average time was 6 to 18 months, but then we just heard from the last presenter that it was 30 days. You just said 30 days?
Yes.
And the last person to speak said that. We were also told that they were not allowed, we just were told that they weren't allowed to leave, but the last time we were told that they could leave, that they left, they had to go to work, that they had to do this. I'm just saying.
I understand your confusion.
I am very confused. And we also were told that we wouldn't cash flow without, I don't understand how it's a nonprofit, but we were told that they needed that many beds to be able to cash flow. And then I'm seeing on this other application where they asked for 75 beds, and I'm really confused about this.
Okay. I'm not handling the financial aspects of the operation, but I'll try to clarify some of your questions. It's going to be a residential facility where people are basically restricted to that premise for 30 days where they receive treatment, medical treatment, and mental health counseling and individual therapy, behavioral health therapy. And at the end of that time, they transition to another type of care.
Is it on the same spot? Do we have two types of facilities there at the one site?
I don't know what's present now, but this is my understanding of what will occur in the future, that it will be a residential treatment facility, and that if they have to transition to a so-called sober living house or a transitional living facility, that would be done in another location, I believe. That's my understanding. As far as the financial, the services are billed for as a medically delivered service and are covered by the payers in the state, whether it's Medicaid or other insurance carriers.
I'm still very confused, because it's like we've got several different facilities coming here, and we're just saying whatever. It sounds like we're just hearing here what is palatable to the board. The numbers keep changing, what they're going to do keeps changing, how they're restrained or not restrained, or we were told that they could not leave the facility. If they did, if they walked off without permission, they would go back to jail. I mean, this is very confusing.
I understand.
Tonight seems
and
like a completely different scenario and a completely different proposal than what we heard a few weeks ago.
I believe some of the other
Mason may not
speakers
be
can.
the person to speak on, to address those issues.
We have other speakers who I believe can address that.
Dr. Mason, are you familiar with the licenses that will be required?
I'm not an expert in it, but I'm somewhat familiar.
Okay, so we've heard from the applicant and we heard from Ms. Adkins. Ms. Adkins spoke in terms of Department of Human Services and what licenses would be required there. She said she was not speaking on behalf of Department of Correction. Will this site require a license for transitional housing facility under ACA 1693-1605, or do you know?
I don't believe it will require an ACA regulation, as you just stated. It's not governed by the ACA regulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go outside the order here a little bit because I don't want to get too far down the road. I did not want to do this multiple times throughout the evening, but given the presentations today, I think it's at this time appropriate. I want to recall Jeremy McKenzie, and we really need to have a full and complete, honest understanding of what we're acting on today.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to
And
clear that up.
I don't want you to ramble. I
Sure.
want you to be point
Yeah,
on,
no, I
specific.
appreciate that. So when we started this process in March with the Planning Commission, we applied to run a facility that was going to be both licensed by DHS, which is what we've already applied for, as well as a transitional housing application. We talked about that right here in this room.
And transitioning housing applications governed by who?
ACC. And we talked about that in open record. It was approved unanimously for the Planning Commission. We talked about it 60 days ago at this meeting, hence Director Weatherford's question about going to church and different things. That would be what would take place in a transitional housing program. Let me be clear. I was not clear in the beginning. I just ran out of time. Since that time, and since we've received so much community feedback, we've been forced to change the level of service that we have there. If you noticed 60 days ago, we didn't have some of the community partners here with us that we have today. To have the highest level of care at this particular facility that we can possibly have. And so since we've had so much pushback from the community about transitional housing and about court dates and inmates, we've transitioned solely to the Division of Behavioral Health. That'll be the only license we have there, and it's acceptable by me for you to put a stipulation on that where we could never change that. As one lady said, we would never change the service. We would never change the licensing agency. If you give us approval tonight, we'll get approval by DHS, Division of Behavioral Health. That'll be the only license. And everything that Ms. Latrice told you a minute ago is absolutely true. Our residents in that particular setting are governed by the state of Arkansas, and they don't go to work. They don't go and have, it's not transitional, they don't do long-term. So they would only stay at our program 30 to 45 days. It would be intense counseling, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists, counselors, and then they would transition back to wherever they came from and then go get their jobs and participate in all of that activity outside of our direction. At Linden Street, it will be solely regulated by DHS if you give us approval tonight. And it's 100% okay with our agency that you stipulated that we could never have the ACC license. Most facilities like ours, Latrice would have told you, have both the dual license, the transitional housing license as well as the DBHS license. But if that helps us to be a community partner here and eases the mind of this community and this board, 100%. We want to provide service here and address the issue that's available. We want to do it any way that we're available to. Hope I answered the question.
Any questions of directors?
Can we ask Kathy Selman, our director,
Pardon?
can we ask our planning director a question at some point?
Yeah, we'll bring her up at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
for giving me a chance.
Roxana Wallace. Roxana Wallace, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening. Roxana Wallace. I own 439, 437, 435, and 433 Whittington Avenue. I've invested over $500,000 in this community on Whittington Avenue. I believe it's the job of the City Council and its representatives to do the will of the people that it represents. There have been numerous petitions signed by the same people from District 1 who elected Erin Holliday to her position. These voices, we feel, are being ignored. We're angry and upset about this. I don't see petitions for this from the residents. I have a letter from a resident on Whittington that says she discussed this matter with Ms. Holliday. I've spoken to others who also claim they have discussed this with her. I don't know if this is legal, and I don't know, but if it's true, she needs to abstain from voting on this. I have the signed letters that I was asked to pass out. It is my understanding that a correctional facility can only be in an area with M2 zoning. These are not voluntary residents, but required to be there by a judge because of a criminal action, and it should therefore be deemed a correctional facility. This property is zoned C3. There are numerous uses that should be considered that would actually benefit and not detract from the value of the property in our neighborhood. It is said the only thing constant is change. I have heard this has been a rehab place in the past, sometimes operating illegally. I also hear it's been that way all my life. And I tell you what, I've heard that so many times it makes me ill. It also heard that newcomers only want change. As a 40-year resident of Arkansas, I'm still considered a newcomer, but I have a lot of ideas that this particular property could be used for besides a correctional facility. We live within a national park. That in itself should be a reason to think preservation and recreation. Think about the many people who use Linden Park and Whittington Park. You're going to vote on a 6,000-seat amphitheater soon. Please consider how this is, again, going to affect the neighborhood. I understand how our city can benefit from that attraction, but not from a criminally assigned halfway house. Please, I'm begging you, vote no for this facility. I also have some petitions that were signed by many people, and I don't really know what to do with them.
Provide them to Mr. Spitzer, please. Any questions of Ms. Wallace? Questions, Ms. Wallace? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Paul Chapman? Paul Chapman? welcome and restate your name and address district, please.
My name's Paul Chapman. I live at 17 Powderhorn Court in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I don't live here in Hot Springs, but my family, up until my dad's death a few years ago, operated Chapman's Eye Care in the mall, and then we moved right across from the mall there. So it's good to be back in Hot Springs. I work for an organization called Restore Hope, and we work with communities, not Hot Springs yet, but soon, to help people get treatment as well as wraparound care, so that we can get folks out of courts, out of prisons, give them help with child welfare cases, and what I think this facility will help with is prevent people from falling into that trouble in the first place. And so my understanding, and I've partnered with Covenant Recovery over the years and the work that they do with transitional and reentry facilities. So I understand the angst and the fear that can come from dealing with a population that is justice involved. And I would say that Covenant Recovery operates several facilities, and they do that safely. And so they have core competencies there. But that's not what this facility is for. This facility is for those who choose to go in and receive treatment because they need it. And I will tell you, in working across the state in this area for about 16 years, in the area where substance abuse disorder is frequent, it's only increasing in Arkansas. There is not enough supply for the demand, unfortunately, that Arkansans have, and that would be true here in Hot Springs also. And so a voluntary residential treatment facility is needed. And whether you approve a few beds or many beds, I would still say that unfortunately the demand still won't be met. And so the demand here is here in this community, being able to partner with the doctor to bring medically assisted treatment along with behavioral health and ties as you step down back home after receiving treatment would be the best care that you could provide someone who chooses to try to get over their addiction and enter recovery. So I'll stop there and answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions of Mr. Chapman? Thank you.
I got a question.
Oh, yes, Director Weatherford?
So this is now changed from what it was before, is that what they're saying? Because before it was court ordered. Now it's people who want to go there. So which one is it? Is it, I mean, I don't understand. This thing has changed so many times. I can't figure it out, because before they could go to church on Sunday and walk away. It was court ordered. They had to go there. If they left, they'd be sent back to wherever it may be. Now he's saying it's if they want someplace to go. So that everything has changed so many times. I don't know that the original resolution covers everything that's been said. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to make a motion, let's go back to the Planning Commission. They come back with something straight for us. I mean, I'm tired of hearing one story and a story and then another story and another story. And when we get to the end, what story are we going to believe? I mean, it's, man that's running the place tells one story, this guy here is telling another story, the lady from Little Rock told another story. So which one is it?
Believe you, man, I don't know. The timing of it, is timing appropriate for his motion?
I believe, it's sure, if it garners a second and you want to discuss the merits of sending it back, sure.
We have a motion to, return this matter to the Planning Commission for review and clarification.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Director Weatherford, seconded by Director Dobbs-Smith. Discussion amongst directors.
Mayor, if I could make a comment. If this is in any way a correctional facility that requires license pursuant to the state statute 1693, 1605 for transitional living, whether that's reentry or on the front end, that is just sort of, you can have a seat if you
Thank
like.
you.
That is just simply not permitted under our table of uses, okay? So that's issue number one. If you want to send it back for a consideration of what use can be made there, obviously that's within the board's purview. Sorry, I'm getting geared up for trial later this week's musical. That's within the board's purview, but otherwise, you could simply approve the DHS type joint group living facility that is not licensed by the Arkansas Department of Corrections or the Division of Community Corrections. But if it's correctional in any form or fashion, it's just not permitted.
Well, the only reason I made the motion is because we heard many testimony 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago.
Right.
They're back and the testimony has changed. I don't know if the resolution has changed from what they were able to do there, because before it was they were court ordered there, and if they left, they go back to prison or wherever it may be. They're allowed to go to church on Sunday, and somebody pick them up and take them, and they go to the store and shop for food. And now that's all changed again. I can't get the story that I want to believe it. I would have to vote no if we're going to vote on it now. That's why I said let's send it back to the planning commission to get their stories completely straight when they come back. Story can't change, it's got to be, because just a minute ago, this man that just spoke said 30 or 45 days, or the man before him maybe, and a little while ago it was 30 days only they would be there. So once again, what is it? Is it 30 days or 45 days or 8 months? I mean, it's not making any sense to me. And I could not vote yes on this in any form or fashion.
Any other comments from directors?
That's kind of what my confusion is on it, because I've watched the public, the planning commission meeting that's public, anyone can watch that. There were completely different things said there than were said to us, and I'm concerned, and that's why I wanted to speak to Director Selman as to if we approve this, what can go there? Does this open the door to something else or something else or something else? And since we've gotten so many conflicting, have they come to us with this initially? What they're saying tonight, that might have been a different story, but we've heard many things, and every time it seems to be changing. Nothing is the same, and it's like, well, well, maybe this will sound good, and that doesn't work for me.
Any other comments?
Are we able to ask Director Selman up now
If
in
it-
response to this? Because sending it back to planning would be her process as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask her questions if it pertains to the motion to table.
I think it might provide some clarity based on the questions that have come up and why it should be tabled.
Yeah, Director Selman. When you provided us information at the agenda meeting, and this was really couched as more of a revisit of a prior decision, and I'd be hard pressed to state that it's the same as what we heard a month ago or so, in that what we're hearing today is that the use of the facility, while it may be a permitted use, it's not necessarily the use that the original application put forth. Is that a correct assessment?
I believe from what I have heard this evening that the use is more limited now, more clearly defined than what came forward originally.
But the approval from the Planning Commission was for something other than what we're hearing tonight.
It was broader. And in recent conversation, with the city attorney, it has come forward that some of the activities that were proposed are characteristic of something that would be a halfway house type of operation. And that was not clear in the beginning.
So any action we took tonight, we would be in a position of trying to put, with a potential approval, other restrictions or guidance or what have you. And I think that's the purview of the Planning Commission to do that in quiet study, than for the directors to do that in a meeting that we're trying to assess what is.
And this is a fairly unusual situation. If what Planning Commission would be doing is rehearing what you have just reheard based on the appeal, based on the original application, I'm not sure what benefit would come from that would differ from the board limiting the scope of what was originally proposed. If I'm understanding correctly what's being discussed.
I understand your concern. And I know you understand our concern, that to those who want to vote in favor of the programming, there must be assurance as to the scope of the programming.
Right.
And whether that is a Planning Commission function or perhaps just a tabling and a redefining, or it has to go through a certain process so that when we approve or disapprove, that we actually know what we're very succinctly what the action item is.
Right. And if what Planning Commission looks at is a more limited version of what went to them before, I mean, we now know that some aspects of what originally was proposed may have fallen into the halfway house category. That was not clear in the beginning, and that cannot be approved in this zone either by Planning Commission or by the Board of Directors. So what Planning Commission would be looking at is a slimmed down version that only has the DHS license aspect of the program to it, and possibly a lower number of program participants, if I'm understanding the direction things seem to be going. If that's what Planning Commission is looking at, that certainly is possible.
If not the Planning Commission, is there another entity outside of the board that would address this matter?
Not one that you would remand it back to.
No.
Right. That's what I'm getting at, is that I don't think we need to, I don't think it's in the, I guess the board has broad authority, but I believe we shouldn't try to, I don't know if I'm not much of a cook, but create the recipe here. And I think that the Planning Commission then is the better choice in the quiet to the degree of quietness, that to sort this out, and perhaps representatives of the programming can provide you some one-page document or something that clearly states what their goal is and objectives are, and programming and licensure would be. So that, I know you had a packet that thick, and to whatever degree that is pertinent to what a one-page document might represent, then great. But I'm going to quiet myself now and ask for other directors to make comment.
Can I ask Ms. Selman, can you, and I know it's been 3 or 4 minutes ago, but your first part of the last statement that you made, will you repeat that about if you brought this back, the planning commission couldn't approve?
Well, the ACC
Okay,
aspect.
based on the information that we have now,
Right.
from the abundance of testimony and interpretation of that testimony, we know that what can be considered by the board or by planning commission is a facility which is licensed by the Department of Human Services, and not the corrections people. That's off the table. We can also look at the number. And in testimony tonight, there were a number of things that I made note of as conditions that would go along with that approval. Among them would be the limitation of the license, that there would be no early release inmates or parolees, and that goes along with it, that they have offered to reconstruct the fence that is between the facility and the park with a solid privacy-type fence. Those conditions certainly can be worked into something that either the board would approve tonight or that planning commission would consider at a meeting in the future. So either way, I think that we have sifted through what the possibilities are and have narrowed those possibilities down significantly from what originally came forward.
I agree with you. And I don't think, as this board, this was brought back, but it was brought back unclear. We were asking to reconsider just like it was before.
Well, that's what it was.
And everything has changed, so none of that is in writing. I want Ms. Selman to, take it back to the planning commission and this be in writing. I know anytime you do any other thing like a PD or whatever it may be, it all comes out and these are the stipulations you got to go by. And tonight we're just got a bunch of testimony that we're asked to go by, and when we walk out that door, is anyone going to remember that other than it being in record? I mean, I think it's got to be something that they sign off on.
Any other comments from directors?
I would like to know if any of the planning commissioners are sitting in this room right now. Anybody from the planning commission here?
Nothing that would prohibit them. Anyone from the planning commission? I don't see anybody. Thank you.
Well, I think technically it's not different. What we've been offered is the opportunity, or we've been given information that the applicant would be happy to comply with conditions that we impose on it. Anything that comes to us from the planning commission, actually anything that we bring, if you notice on the very last page, we can approve, deny, or amend. Almost everything has that opportunity to amend. So this isn't unusual in that respect. And we absolutely are saying, how would someone know? Well, it would absolutely be part of the record of the resolution, that the resolution would include that language, whether it be privacy fence, 28 people, no ACC licensing, whatever. Those are things just like any other amendment that we would all approve, I would assume, one at a time, and would be in there or not. I think it going to planning, quite frankly, just kicks the can down the road. We'll be hearing this again in 60 days, and if there is a solution that we can come to based on the testimony given this evening, I want to be solution-oriented and move forward on behalf of us, my neighborhood, the community, and try to find the best solution for everyone. And I think a lot of the things that have come up do address a lot of the issues at hand, which I know doesn't necessarily speak to what you're saying with sending it back to planning, but to Kathy's point, planning's going to be hearing all the stuff that we heard. It's just going to keep adding chapters to these documents. Or we can put in writing whatever conditions we can legally put in place based on the code. I'm sure
I
they put
appreciate all that you said. I but I don't consider us asking the planning commission to review those conditions is kicking the can down the road. I think it's being thorough in ensuring that we don't have a misstep. We have the great potential of taking action today, having a misstep, going out thinking we did something, and then find out that, no, we didn't cover that base. And when we're dealing with licensure issues, we need to have assurance that we understand what the license is, what's allowed to be done under that license. I understand, we have our ordinances and our codes, and then we're trying to work with certain licenses, even like we said earlier this evening, it wasn't 15, 20 minutes ago, that, they weren't going to do transitional, which was under ACC. Well, we're hearing this exactly what we acted on a month or two ago, and even back then, this wasn't a correctional facility, but it was a transitional program that had a correctional facility component to it. And so that's why I think that we get one sheet of paper, tell us what this is, and make sure we don't have a misstep. Because you have, one chance to do this, generally, and we don't want to have to revisit something that we approved and go, we didn't understand that. So, any other comments? Call the roll.
Director Holliday.
Well, before we move, the motion is return this to the Planning Commission.
And if it helps the board in your determination, I'll work with Ms. Selman to see that the Planning Commission addresses some of the concerns that you've raised here this evening as potential conditions to be added to this permit.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Directors Holliday.
No.
Jones.
No.
Dobbs-Smith.
Yes.
Weatherford.
Yes.
Trustee.
Yes.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. The ayes have it. It will return to the Planning Commission. Thank you. And I do want to apologize for all those who had signed up on both the for and the against who were unable to address the board this evening. Thank you, though, for your attendance. I want to thank everybody to exit quietly so we can continue. Thank you. At this time, we'll hear Resolution R2192 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-21-92, a resolution approving a preliminary plat and 33-lot subdivision development plan on approximately 21 acres of land located at 258 5 Points Road and Aberina Street. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Yeah, I'm going to pause right here. We're going to allow, we have people in the lobby area that's going to come in on this particular issue. I guess we could have a motion to adopt. We got a motion by Director Trustee, seconded by Director Aaron Holliday. And we're going to pause. Chief, do we have citizenry who would like to come in on this particular issue? Yes, sir.
Y'all doing sign language too, that's, I can't hear. Right there.
Okay, for those who are on their way in, we had continued meeting, and what we've done so far is we had a motion and a second to hear to consider resolution R2192, city attorney, read by title only. So we're gonna, at this time, we're hearing the staff report from Planning Director Kathy Selman. So Director Selman.
We're really at this point? I could not hear what was going on, so, sorry.
It's your staff report on resolution R2192.
Yep. Ready to go.
Thank you.
Okay. The owners of this property are Joseph France and Chris Post. They have property which is zoned Lake Residential and was annexed to the city in the summer of 2018. This was a request for a 33-lot subdivision. Planning Commission approved this on May 13th. And again, a little bit about the discretion that is varied depending on the type of land use question that you're seeing. When you see a conditional use, for example, you have quite a bit of discretion to apply site-specific conditions to the standards in order to come to a decision. In a request to change zoning, you have quite a bit of leeway to make the decision to change zoning or not to change zoning. This is a request to divide land, and this is not a decision where the decision maker has a lot of leeway. This is tightly prescribed. Provision needs to be made for access, for circulation, for safe and dependable utilities. We create lots that have numbers for ease of description in ownership transactions. The rules are tightly prescribed. And if an applicant comes forward having met those rules, then that pretty much is an approvable subdivision. There, in this particular situation, in the appeal, the appellant, Charlotte Gold, is represented by attorney Bert Newell, and he has appealed Planning Commission's decision. In his appeal, he noted this project would be placed in what is now denominated as an environmental preservation corridor in the Hot Springs Plan. The Hot Springs Plan is a great plan. There was tremendous citizen participation in putting it together. And individual decisions will be made in the future by Planning Commission and then by the board to amend rules that are in place that govern things such as subdivisions, looking at the recommendations that are in that plan. But that hasn't happened yet. Those things in the plan are not the standards by which we evaluate a request to divide land. Those rules are in Hot Springs Code. And the rules that are in place when the applicant comes forward with an application must be the rules that we use to evaluate the request. That's what's fair. And what we have in this appeal, I'm tremendously pleased that people remember what went into the plan, that they think that's important. And I hope to be coming forward to you with amendments to Hot Springs Code that will implement the recommendations in that plan, but we're not at that point. Planning Commission looked at the plan for dividing the land after it had been reviewed at least twice by the Development Review Committee, which is an interdepartmental, interagency group of professionals who are subject matter experts. They are responsible for implementing various parts of Hot Springs Code: engineering, utilities, fire. Those people looked at the plan, the original plat that came in. They met with the applicant, clearly stated where deficiencies existed, and the applicant's representative amended those plat documents and development plans to be consistent with the Hot Springs Code based upon the comments that were made by the Development Review Committee. That revised plat is what went to Planning Commission. And Planning Commission looked closely at the development plan and the preliminary plat and determined that the requirements of Hot Springs Code can be met with that plat with certain conditions. And the conditions that went along with that plat were not unusual conditions. They are typical conditions. And that is what Planning Commission determined was in the best interest of the public health and safety based upon the rules that are in Hot Springs Code. So I applaud you if you, and I hope you do, think that we should be looking more closely at environmental factors in land use decisions. We should. But those rules are not in place at this time. So what we have is a preliminary plat and development plans that Planning Commission considered on May 13th. There were, I believe, 2 people who testified. One was Mr. Hurst. He was for the project. And one was Ms. Dunn. She was against it. And that was it. That was the extent of participation at Planning Commission's meeting. And after considering public testimony and the record, Planning Commission accepted the staff review findings that the applicant's submittal, along with the recommended conditions of approval, would satisfy Hot Springs Code Section 16.442 regarding the threshold information for submitting an application, as well as development plans and preliminary plats that fulfill the requirements of Hot Springs Code with those 7 conditions. I can read those conditions. All construction and construction activities are to be accomplished in strict accordance with the approved preliminary plat and development plans. These conditions of approval and all applicable technical codes and specifications, including the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, whether submitted or not for staff review or planning commission approval. Number 2, a final subdivision bill of assurance shall be provided to and approved by the planning department prior to execution of the subdivision plat. A copy of the recorded bill of assurance shall be returned to the planning department after recordation. Number 3, full and continuous compliance with all applicable stormwater permitting and water quality regulations, including a retention and detention plan if required. The planning director shall be authorized to sign the preliminary plat listing these conditions of approval and the development plan, and work shall not proceed until the preliminary plat has been so executed, and it has been. Number 5, no permits will be issued and the sale of lots shall not occur until a final plat meeting the requirements of Hot Springs Code Section 16-444 has been approved by the planning director and filed for record with Garland County Circuit Clerk, and an original copy of the plat returned to the planning department office. Number 6, approval of this preliminary plat and development plan is valid until May 13, 2023. Prior to this date, the developer may request in writing an extension of up to 1 year for project completion. And then there was a request that tracks that were identified on the final, for the final plat should be identified by name with what the intended use was. For example, tract X is a common area or a boat launch or something along those lines. These conditions, other than the final one, are quite typical. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this. And just a final note, that all of the other adopted codes that the city has are looked at in conjunction with a review of a plat. That would be street specifications and regulations, drainage specifications and regulations, utility specifications and regulations, planning and zoning regulations, floodplain management and stormwater regulations, landscape regulations, and anything else that may apply that has been adopted by the city. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions of Ms. Sullivan? Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you mention that there was some property that there's a dispute over ownership, and that is not included in any?
It is not within the boundary of the plat.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's what I want to make sure.
Mhm.
And there's no boat docks or ramps or?
Planning Commission would not be approving anything upon the lake. Those things fall under the jurisdiction of Entergy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions of Ms. Sullivan? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead, and we have a number of people who signed up to speak on this item. Mr. Mark Toth, please come forward and state your name and address and district, please.
I don't know why you called me first. I know I'm not first on the list, but I appreciate that. Mañana, which means tomorrow, technically, but actually is a word that means, well, maybe we'll get to it. And that's what's happened with the 2040 plan. You spent $250,000 developing in this plan, and it's sat on the shelf for over a year. No work has been done implementing the conditions. Ms. Selman, to her credit, and I believe her, would like to implement elements of it, but here's the kicker. She doesn't have the staff to do it, and that's on you. You set that. And I'm going to come back to this. If we want a city with an excellent quality of life, that plan needs to be implemented. And as I said last time, you have an option here. Put a moratorium in place on consideration of all of these issues for 30 days. Light a fire under staff. Tell them point blank, Bill, hire whoever you want. Bring us a plan that implements this. Approve it, and then start it back up. It's not fair that you're going to follow the old rules, and then, let's say hypothetically in 3 months, the rules change, and the property right next to it has to suddenly follow new and different rules. If we want a city that is dynamic, that is environmentally protected, that is a great place to live, the plan needs to be implemented. And I know it's a lot of work, but look at what you do with the short-term rentals. That was a lot of work. It was hard work. Bill, I know did a lot of, Brian, I mean, how many drafts did you have to do? 14, 15? I mean, that's, I dread that. But it's the right thing to do. You have a moratorium on short-term rentals in place right now. Declare an emergency, put a moratorium in place, and do what's right and best for the city. Because otherwise, it's going to be mañana. That plan is going to go back up on the shelf, and no one's going to touch it. They'll talk about it. It may be referenced once in a while, but the code won't be changed because that is a Herculean job. I'll admit it. It's a Herculean job. But if we want a dynamic city, we want a positive city, that's what has to be done, and it needs to be done now. People are watching. People are observing. You lead this city. You are our leaders. And if you just put it back up on the shelf, what are you saying to your constituents? What are you saying about this city? It can be done. Look at what happened with short-term rentals legislation. It can be done. Maybe it takes 45 days. But please, don't just go along, get along. No more mañanas. Please, no more mañanas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Glenda Dunn. Ms. Glenda Dunn. No, she was here earlier. Let's give a minute in case she's out in the lobby area.
She's gone.
Pardon?
She's gone.
She had to leave. Gone, okay. Isabel Muro? Isabel? Isabel? Lauren Atkins? Please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Hello, Mayor McCabe and members of the Board of Directors, City Manager Burrows. My name is Lauren Atkins. I reside at 309 Mockingbird Street. I'm in Karen Garcia's district, District 5. I would like to echo Mark's call for a development moratorium until the zoning code can be brought into compliance with your extremely ambitious and wonderful 2040 plan. That is a very impressive plan, very impressive work that you all did as a group, and it would be a shame to miss some of the marks in completing that because of zoning issues. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Brenda McDaniel. Ms. Brenda McDaniel. Mr. Dan Johnson. Mr. Dan Johnson.
A lot of these people live in District 1 that you're mentioning, so I'm just gonna, they may have signed up on the wrong list.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I just got to go over it just in the event. Rebecca Fleming. Rebecca Fleming. Zach Dryden. I know Zach was speaking last time on this issue. Zach? Mr. Aaron Burrows. Mr. Aaron Burrow, please restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Aaron Burrows. I live at 110 Hunter Cove Court in the county. I'm the presenter for this project. Basically, I guess I've got 3 minutes like everybody else, or is there a timer?
It's on the
Bing.
screen.
Okay, all right. Basically, we're presenting a 20-acre subdivision. It's a low-density residential lake home subdivision. We have 31 new homes that we're proposing and 2 existing homes that are incorporated in the subdivision. This is a low-density, 1.6 home per acre subdivision. We as engineers know it's in the best interest of the developers and the land to try and be as low impact as possible. I read the 2040 comprehensive plan myself. In this project, we are dedicating 2.5 acres on the west side of our property as green space that will not be developed. There's about 450 feet of stream along that will not be disturbed. It will be kept in a pristine nature. There's 200 feet of frontage along Abarina Street. When and if the greenway is ever extended into our area, as it shows on the comprehensive plan, it would run down Abarina Street. The 200 feet of our frontage on Abarina Street would be part of the greenway if it was ever built that far. It would have to jump across several pieces of private property to ever do that, and it would basically just run down the road. But the 200 feet that would be part of the greenway if they build it would be over our pristine spring, pristine creek that will be undisturbed, 200 feet of frontage, natural woods, and a 450 feet buffer till you get to our first home. So that so basically this will maintain the greenway, green space, and the comprehensive plan will not be interrupted in any way in our development. Another part of the 2040 comprehensive plan was infrastructure. For a city to grow, we must have infrastructure. 2 important part of infrastructure we're implementing is improvements to water and to streets. Right now, there's a dead-end 6-inch water main that runs to the end of Abarina and a dead end at the end of 5 Points Road. We're going to connect those 2 6-inch mains. Right now, those have about 1,100 to 1,200 gallons per minute of pressure, water flow, which is not enough for fire protection. When we connect them, we'll have 1,500 gallons per minute or more, which will provide adequate fire protection. So we'll have infrastructure there. I also have better fire protection. Right now, that the 5 residents along Abarina, there's only a 2-inch water line that serves for residential use, but not for fire protection. Also about infrastructure, we're going to extend the road and connect Abarina to 5 Points, which will it'll be a private road, won't be a through road, but in case of emergency, it'll also provide more access for roads and safety for the people there. There's been appeal brought before the board about the development regarding this 2040 plan. Part of the 2040 plan is growth, economic benefits, and draw people to Hot Springs. Hot Springs has national parks. Hot Springs has U.S. forest. Hot Springs has a city greenway. These areas are dedicated and will not be disturbed. Another quote from the 2040 plan is, I'll wrap this up real quick. Another quote from the 2040 plan is that if you read on page 56 of the 2040 plan, it says the City of Hot Springs should adopt policies that fast-track building permits and assist permitting and development. That's part of the comprehensive plan, to assist with building and development. This is a building development project, first submitted in January 8th. It's been 6 months. Plane's been circling for 6 months. I hope you help us land it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be available if there are any other questions, or now or later.
Questions of Mr. Burrow? Thank you. Mr. Burt Newell, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'm Burt Newell. I have an office in town. I live out in the county. I'm here tonight representing Charlotte Gold, who is in District 5. The plan at issue, as all 3 previous speakers have alluded to, is incompatible with the 2040 comprehensive plan. The 2040 comprehensive plan maps the area around the lake in this project as environmental preservation corridor. The majority of the platted subdivision is in this EPC. Referring directly to the 2040 plan at page 101, the vision of the plan was large areas of forested land and steep slopes need to be proactively protected from development impacts, given their importance to the Hot Springs economy and quality of life. Settlements in these areas should respond to the natural environment and utilize low-impact development techniques, cluster developments, conservation easements, and very low-density development types. The criteria for the environmental preservation corridors are to minimize land disturbance through compact development patterns, consider low-impact development techniques, continue the stream, creek protection, water quality management, protect tree cover, protect the native soil, promote native vegetation and low-maintenance landscape techniques, minimize site disturbance associated with overlot grading, reduce impervious surfaces, use permeable paving systems. There should thus be an environmental impact study to clarify how or if the platted subdivision is consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan vision and planning criteria. Because this subdivision plan calls for development of 33 lots. 29 of these 33 lots have a gradient in excess of 10%. The fire department has, as Ms. Selman pointed out, the fire department needs and requires a 10% maximum gradient on any city streets, so for ingress and egress of fire equipment. So you've got 33 lots, 29 are 10% or greater, and the other 4 are 9%, 9%, 9%, and 6%. You have slopes on lots of 27%, 22%, 30%, 26%, 26%, 26%, 23%, 22%, 20%, 25%, several that are 17 and 18%. This is a mountainous terrain. This is not a hillside. It's clearly a hillside subdivision from the code, but this is a mountainous area out there that's going to have to be massively excavated. Total tree loss. The amount of erosion is untold at present. That's why there must be an environmental study, at least to see if this plan can possibly become compatible with the 2040 comprehensive plan. Other areas of concern, there's only 2 access roads in and out, 5 Points Road and Aberina. Neither are suitable for construction and excavation necessary for the equipment necessary for the project. There's also an ongoing property ownership issue with part of the shoreline with energy. It's noted in the Planning Commission packet. So we can't even see for sure where the docks will be located or other shoreline development. There is a bill of assurance that's a draft, but bills of assurance can be changed by the owners at any time. The 2040 forward plan will become part of the Hot Springs Code. There's no question about it. Everyone on the board knows it will. The 97 plan became part of the code. The 2030 plan became part of the code, and this current plan will become part of the code. As Mr. Toth expressed, we hope that sooner rather than later. So what we're really going to be doing as a board, if you approve this, you're going to pass something that you full well know will be incompatible with future code language. So this project will be a non-conforming plan that'll just be grandfathered in, and it'll be in discord with the 2040 plan at present.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Do you have a final comment?
I would ask at least for the board to consider the requirement of an environmental study vis-a-vis the environmental preservation corridor, disallow use of 5 Points Road as a construction road, require the ownership dispute with energy to be resolved with finality, and wait until the 2040 plan is adopted as part of the code to reconsider this plan. Just Ms. Selman said that this is an approvable plan, but just because something is approvable doesn't mean that you need to approve it, and I hope you don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Final speaker on this issue, at least as individuals signed up, is Mr. Q. Byram Hurst. Please come forward and restate your name, address, and
Thank you.
district.
Thank you, members of the board and Mr. Mayor. I'm Q. Byram Hurst, and my address is 518 Washita here in Hot Springs. I represent the owners and the developers of this Silver Key subdivision. And on May the 13th, as Ms. Selman has related to you, we appeared before the Planning Commission. The purpose of it was to determine whether these preliminary plans were appropriate and in compliance with the zoning code and the rules and regulations of the city of Hot Springs. When we appeared there, we had the recommendation of the planning department. And, you know, we're fortunate here because we have a planning department that are professionals. They study this, they train, they work for us, and they approved it. But even more importantly, it also unanimously passed by the Planning Commission. And, you know, what that meant was it met all the requirements, including the requirements by the fire marshal, the police chief, the public works director. They met all off-street parking requirements and all setback requirements. All the roads are in compliance with the plans that are with the city code. Now, you know, there is what has been described here tonight as an appeal. And strangely enough, the appeal is sort of diverting the attention of what really the issue was, because what you've heard tonight is concerns about the comprehensive plan. And if you recall, Ms. Selman made it very clear that the comprehensive plan had not been adopted into the zoning code. And the most important reason, or the most important part of that is that when you have people like my clients that are developers and planners, they come into a city and to make it stronger, and of course this is what they do for a living, but what they do is look at a piece of property and say, can we develop that? Can we buy this piece of property with our hard-earned money and develop it in accordance with the plans of the city of Hot Springs? That's what these gentlemen did. Now, there are two important ordinances that you need to look back at. The first one is in 2016, which was ordinance number 6121, and that allowed the annexation of this property into the city. Then in 2018, there was an ordinance passed which assigned the RL zone to this property. And of course, this was done by you. It was done by the board of directors at that time. And it's important that when that occurs, if people buy that property, you don't take it away from them. What you do is you make them comply with the law, with the zoning regulations, and that's what people have to do. They have to have notice. In the law, we call that due process. In other words, we saw what the rules and regulations were. We bought the property. We conformed to it. It's been approved by all. And I know you know your job very, very well. You do an excellent job, but the truth of the matter is your responsibility is to apply the zoning code to these requests. And there's no reason that this subdivision should not be approved, just as the planning department and the planning commission did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Discussion amongst, Director Garcia, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Mayor, I had a couple of questions and then comments.
Proceed.
I understand that.
Is it a particular question to
Well, that's why I'm not sure who would be the proper person to ask.
Guess we start
It
with
was
Director Selman.
About erosion, and I understand Ms. Gold's concern because her property joins the property that's going to be development. If due to work being performed on the construction site during excavation, it does impact negatively her property, what steps are available to her for that remedy?
Well, the stormwater program of the City of Hot Springs is one of the best in the state. And the monitoring of activity on site will be a regular thing. And the goal is not to see that erosion. And in the regulations that are used to look at a preliminary subdivision or final subdivision, those drainage specifications and regulations, stormwater specification and regulations are used.
And there was mention of the construction, is there a separate construction road or bringing the heavy equipment into the development site? Any damage done to the streets, how is that handled?
If damage is done to the roads, then the developer is responsible for taking the road back to the condition that it was in pre-development.
Okay. And thank you very much. My comments are that since this year that I've been back to our meetings, we've had a lot of issues and misunderstandings or discussion regarding the 2040 plan and how that has not been adopted into our code, and therefore we can not legally, if I asked the city attorney to keep me correct on how I state this, but we go by the code, and until it's adopted into the code, it's not applicable to apply. But this has come up every month, time and time again, and that it's my expectation, and I hope others, because at the time the work was done on the 2040 plan, and the people that worked and volunteered and came and gave all this input did not understand the time it would take to adopt what they worked on. So I receive a lot of calls and emails and texts regarding this because the citizens and businesses are interested in being good environmental stewards. And I applaud that as well, that we see that that's beneficial to the future for residents and increasing population and businesses. They like to see that. So first, I want to move forward in getting priorities and what we can start getting staffing needs to get the work or contract to get our code updated in a reasonable time frame and put priorities of what we can go ahead and adopt. So that being said, with our revenue, sales tax revenue up over 35% in April and year to date over 18%, and the largest general fund balance that we've had in my recent memory over the past 10 years, then I think that we should invest where needed for our community and staff accordingly, not just for this, but with the number of permits that I see coming before the planning department. Their workload was increasing before this, and to not put too much work on any one individual in the planning department, we need to staff to the needs of our community, and I encourage us to do that. And I understand I think I understand that we can't apply this unless there is a moratorium until that's adopted. We can't apply anything from the 2040 Hot Springs Comprehensive Plan until it's adopted into the code. Is that correct?
Director, that is correct, and a moratorium on this particular application would not be applicable because the application's already been submitted.
Well, thank you for that clarification. So I do have a motion for amendment, not anything to our plan, but I would move to move the approval, amend the approval of the Silver Key project with an eighth condition stating, that's for her, the city clerk too. All permits required from Entergy must be obtained, including but not limited to excavations, roads, landscaping, plantings, as described in the Entergy permits required and identified by Entergy Shoreline Management prior to issuance of the excavation permit from the city of Hot Springs. And this is from Kimberly Bogart, and she's interested in what is going on in this property because it goes to the shoreline, and they have it listed, and they want to review what is to be done and issue a permit if that is in compliance with their requirements. So I'm not asking us to do anything, but just to be in that, as we've done for other things when asking for a boat dock, that, you know, we don't approve that. That's what Entergy approves. So this is just saying Entergy, we've done everything Entergy required.
Any other comments or questions on this matter?
Did she just make a motion?
I made a motion
Okay.
to amend.
And is that, just for a little bit of clarification there, is that something that we can, because we're not Entergy?
No, I just amended it as a condition. We have 7 conditions. I
Right.
amended to add an 8th condition. And I've seen this, we've done this in the past for before any construction on a boat dock. She said that we don't approve that. I'm just saying before, if they require an excavation permit, that they get that from Entergy. Whatever Entergy is requiring. And this is from the Shoreline in Kimberly Bogart, and she has this listed, since it goes to the shoreline, she included that excavation.
Who is she? Is she an engineer?
Let's see what
She
her,
runs Entergy.
She's the lake project manager.
Because-
If you want a boat dock, you gotta see her.
Yeah, he says she's the project manager.
You can
Shoreline
get in and
manager.
see her.
she has a phone number and an email, and
I just want to know who she was. I'm
she's
good.
Shoreline Management.
I'd be hard pressed to try to restate somebody else's regulatory
Well, that's what I
governance
want.
within a motion. You know, they are,
It's just asking for if that.
It's kinda
we
redundant, isn't it?
follow that they follow their requirements.
it's understood that they have to follow the requirements of other regulatory bodies.
Well, this wasn't mentioned. Do you have any comments on that?
I do. There is a standard comment, condition number 1, that all construction and construction activities are to be accomplished in strict accordance with the approved preliminary plat and development plans. These conditions of approval, as well as all applicable technical codes and specifications, whether they have been submitted for staff review or planning commission approval or not. That perhaps covers Entergy's requirements.
Okay, since it spells out the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, can we just also spell out the codes required by Entergy?
Was the fire code part of our planning codes? I mean, our
It
construction
is,
codes?
we have adopted it, it exists on its own as well.
Right, but we adopted it.
Mhm.
But it spells it out in condition 1.
But
Is there
it just-
opposition to spelling out Entergy?
Well, do you want to spell out ADEQ's role in this process?
Well, we have our own, she said that our.
No, I'm just
Well, that-
asking, I mean.
That amount of property would come under ADEQ, wouldn't come under us. ADEQ, you'd have to have a ADEQ permit issued by the state for that amount of property.
For what?
Anything you do there, I mean, they can come in and
She
shut you
said
down.
our wastewater department was going to.
I just don't, we're voting on another project by these folks who have another project at the end of the road that's caused us nothing but problems. We
But
okayed it.
That's separate.
I know that. But you have one that they haven't finished. They cut dirt forever and still cutting dirt, and they're gonna have to do it on this one here. I can't believe we're approving another project by them. That's how I feel. That's, you don't finish one and you cut power and cable and push dirt into the lake, and dirt and water runs on the road, and if they get a permit for this one, is that gonna be the same thing? I'm willing to say yes, but maybe not.
Well, that may have been what got the attention of Ms. Bogart. I don't know, but I know that she's interested in this. And I just ask that we
Well, and Entergy is very powerful on the shoreline. They,
well, I'm just asking that we
have a motion to amend to include, not sure exactly.
are we going to issue our permits without knowing that they've gotten their permit from Entergy? I don't know how you know that unless you include it.
I think they're two mutually exclusive activities.
So the city can say they can do something that the Entergy may have
Entergy
said no?
deals with the shoreline.
Yes, at the 400-foot contour line, yes, that's the demarcation. No different than city limits, county
Right.
unincorporated areas, state lines, international, yeah. I
But
mean,
you go past that, it's not ours.
there's a regulatory limit.
That's what I'm saying. It's not,
It's their
we don't
problem
have
to
it.
take care of. It's
They
not
have the
ours.
authority to issue a stop work order,
Yeah.
same as we do.
Right.
So if they're violating
Okay.
Entergy's regulations in Kimberly, can issue a stop work order.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they would, if there was an issue, they would do that.
Yeah. No, they could.
Or
They
if
could.
they had
ADEQ can also.
any of those, any regulatory agency, from what I understand, that had a issue. But you understand what I was trying to, and as long as the construction and contractor understands that, it's not just the city, it's also other agencies. And last week, it was stated there were no concerns from the Planning Commission on the environmental issues. And however, I watched afterwards the recording of the Planning Commission, and I heard a discussion about that, and planning commissioners did voice some concerns, but as pointed out, they understood they didn't have the authority to bring that into code or apply it in these situations. So, I mean, the Planning Commission is probably hearing from people also, and is another reason to the board to do what we need to do on adoption of getting the help needed for the code to be updated.
Okay, well, procedurally, she had made a motion to add language that would require permitting or and following the rules of Entergy. Is there a second to that motion? Second to the motion? There not being a second, the motion dies for lack of a second. Any other comments or questions? This is the board discussion time.
I wanted to ask the city manager, can you lend any clarification to this conversation around the plan? I agree that it has sat on the shelf, but a year, considering the scale of the plan and how busy the planning department is, it's not necessarily a very long time, but do we have it on
Well,
radar?
I can appreciate that, and within the comp plan, there is an action plan. There's an action plan on how we bring that to you. There's a reason it's called a 2040 plan. It's not something that we adopt in the very next year. It's an intense, comprehensive plan, and those things will be coming to you in the form of ordinances to adopt. There's things in there that I think as we bring them, we're going to need the city attorney to review. There's still property rights out there. If our comprehensive plan said everyone on the lake had to have bluegrass, we may not be able to make them have bluegrass. So, you know, there's things in there that are wishes and wants that we still need to bring, and that'll be up to the board on what you adopt with that purview by the city attorney. I do want to say that it is a lot of work, and we could use more staff in implementing that. But this plan was adopted and approved in 2020. I shouldn't have to remind anybody what we were going through in 2020 with COVID. You know, we had a lot of months there where we were barely able to have enough employees to manage the city, and we implemented shifts that allowed us to continue our operations, continue to meet the needs of the residents and the citizens and the businesses. But yet, things like the comp plan, they're going to sit on the shelf during an emergency like that. We're going to take care of what we have to continue to make this city run. We want to see the comprehensive plan implemented, and we'll continue to work on that, and we'll bring that to you. But, you know, it does need to be one of your priorities as we set our goals when we move into our session on the 31st of this month. Coming out of the COVID, and really we're still fighting that battle, but we spent the next 4.5 months on STRs. That became the priority. So, you know, we've juggled a lot. I appreciate staff. I want to tell Ms. Selman how much I appreciate her and the planning department. You guys have really pulled us through in a lot of the things that we've had to manage over these past several months, especially your partnership in working with all of us on the STR. You know, we worked as a very, very good team as we put that together. We still have a lot to do. You know, this board has passed that ordinance. We still have to come up with the rules, and we're still implementing those. So just want to set that out there on the 2040 plan. I don't want anybody that's watching this to think that that's not an important document to staff. It's a very important document, but it's not more important than getting us through what we've been through in the last 16 months.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments on this agenda item from board members? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Jones.
No.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
No.
Garcia.
No.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Motion passes 4-3. Or, excuse me, resolution is adopted 4-3. Our final action item of the evening is to consider ordinance 02129. In order to move forward, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title.
So moved.
Director Dobbs Smith, seconded by Director Trustee. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read ordinance by title.
Ordinance 021-29, an ordinance approving M1 zoning on land generally located at Winona and Cherokee Streets on Block 17, Lot 7, 8, and 9 of Morrison Building Subdivision, amending the future land use plan map and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Holliday, Director Trustee. The staff report will be given by Director of Plan Development, Kathy Selman.
Thank you. The applicant and property owner is Mr. Marty Coco. He is requesting a zone change to M1 Light Manufacturing for property located at the corner of Winona Street and Cherokee Street. It's currently zoned R4, medium-high density residential, and has a future land use plan map designation of residential medium-high. It's in Board District Number 2. The site is approximately 1/2 acre in size. The zoning code, Section 16-11E, details the requirements for a planning commission to approve a request to change zoning. The applicant submitted a one-page narrative supporting this request, and the points that he mentioned are: this corner lot faces south on Winona in an area filled with industrial-type businesses. Across the street is Radius Incorporated, who has just completed another huge new multi-million-dollar facility. Excuse me. To the left of this property is Guerrilla Garage, of which I own that property also. And across the side street is First Step School's van repair garage. That garage is the next facility to the east of my property. Planning Commission advertised and called for testimony at their June 10th regular meeting. They, after calling for testimony and considering the record, they accepted the staff report findings and recommendations, voting 9-0 to recommend approval. The findings adopted by Planning Commission were that the future land use plan map amendment to industrial is consistent with surrounding industrial zones, and the finding with regard to zoning is that the proposed change demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development and zoning. So the unanimous recommendation to the board is that you adopt an ordinance amending the zoning map, designating the subject M1 light manufacturing based upon the finding that they made. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Ms. Selman's?
I think you said, and I'm sorry, I was zoomed into the agenda meeting, but there was no testimony against from the residents that were nearby.
Right, there was none. And all residents within 200 feet were notified of the request. The property was posted with a sign, and the legal advertisement was published in the Sentinel Record newspaper.
Any further questions of Ms. Selman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone, I don't have a sign-up sheet that's been presented to me. Anybody in the audience would like to speak for or against this ordinance? Hearing none, or seeing none. Discussion amongst directors? Any further discussion amongst directors? Please call the roll.
Director Dobbs-Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Board commentary. Any items of discussion by board members? Director, or City Manager Burrow.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, I probably should have covered this on my city manager report, but Mr. Toth is still in the room, and he had a question about this. But I did want to make the board aware that the 2 buses that we had ordered, we put those on an auction site. They were on there for 3 days. Both buses did sell in the amount of $345,000, which was the parameters that we set on the auction at 90% of the value of the buses. we did, as Mr. Spicer mentioned, we had hoped to return quite a bit of the money to the general fund, and we did, about $400,000 from the CARES Act. And that's going to look like it's going to be somewhere around $365,000 from the CARES Act. We did take a hit on these buses. It was about $38,000. But I was very happy to see both buses sell for 90% of the value that we had listed as our minimum, in the amount of $345,000. So wanted to make sure that we were transparent and let the board and the public know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other commentary from the board? Hearing none?
Mayor, are you ready for me?
Your final you have a final comment?
Yes. I move that we adjourn for the night. That's my comment.
Second.
I'm hungry. Thanks.
We have a second?
Yeah.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank
Look
you.
at Mr. Trustee, he be waiting on me. He just be sitting like this.